The princess's whisper hung in the air between them, fragile as spun glass. "Embrace me," she said, her eyes reflecting a lifetime of loneliness despite the crown she wore. Alexander Stone, a man whose empire stretched across continents, felt something crack within his carefully constructed walls. For the first time in his life, all his billions couldn't buy what he suddenly wanted most, her genuine smile, offered freely without knowledge of his wealth. Hey everyone! If you're enjoying this story of unexpected connection and discovering what truly matters in life, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Now, let's continue with this tale of a princess who had everything except what matters most, and the billionaire who thought he had it all until he met her. Alexander Stone adjusted his custom Italian suit as he entered the charity gala, scanning the room with practiced indifference. These events were all the same, wealthy people pretending to care about causes while networking for their next business deal. At 38, he had built Stone Enterprises from nothing into a global technology empire worth billions, but success had left him increasingly hollow. "Mr. Stone, so glad you could make it," gushed the event coordinator, a woman whose name he'd already forgotten. "Your donation will make such a difference for the children's hospital." He nodded curtly, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. The ballroom of the Grand Palace Hotel was transformed into a winter wonderland, with crystalline decorations catching the light from enormous chandeliers. Politicians, celebrities, and business titans mingled beneath them, their laughter too loud, their smiles too practiced. That's when he saw her. She stood alone by the grand windows, gazing out at the city lights. Unlike the other women draped in designer gowns and dripping with jewels, she wore a simple blue dress that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in an elegant knot, revealing the graceful curve of her neck. "Who is that?" Alexander asked the coordinator, surprising himself with his sudden interest. "Princess Eliana of Nordhaven," the woman replied. "She's the guest of honor tonight. Her foundation for children's literacy is what we're supporting." Alexander had heard of Nordhaven, a small European principality known for its progressive policies and stunning mountain landscapes. He'd never had business there, the country was too small to register on his radar. As if sensing his gaze, Princess Eliana turned. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and she smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her already beautiful face into something transcendent. Alexander felt his breath catch. There was something different about her, something authentic that stood out in this room full of pretense. Before he could stop himself, he was walking toward her. "Your Highness," he said with a slight bow. "Alexander Stone." "Mr. Stone," she replied, her voice carrying a slight accent that he couldn't quite place. "I've heard of your technological innovations. Your work on accessible software for disabled children is impressive." He blinked in surprise. Most people mentioned his wealth or his recent acquisition of a rival company. Few knew about the accessibility projects he funded. "That's not what most people remember about me," he admitted. "Perhaps they're not looking closely enough," she said, that smile returning. "Sometimes the most important things about a person are hidden beneath the surface." Their conversation flowed with unexpected ease. Princess Eliana spoke passionately about her literacy foundation, explaining how she'd started it after discovering remote villages in her country where children had no access to books. "Education changed my life," she said. "I may have been born into privilege, but my parents died when I was young. Books became my escape, my comfort, my teachers." Alexander found himself sharing things he rarely discussed, his childhood in a struggling single-parent household, the scholarship that changed his trajectory, his mother's battle with cancer that inspired his hospital donations. When the orchestra began playing, he surprised himself again by asking, "Would you care to dance, Your Highness?" "Please, call me Eliana," she said, placing her hand in his. "And yes, I would love to." As they moved across the dance floor, Alexander became acutely aware of the eyes following them. Princess Eliana seemed not to notice, or perhaps she was simply accustomed to the attention. What struck him most was how present she was, fully engaged in their conversation, not checking for more important people or better networking opportunities. "You're different from what I expected," he confessed. "What did you expect?" she asked, curiosity lighting her eyes. "Someone more entitled, perhaps. Less genuine." She laughed, the sound like clear bells. "And you're not the cold, calculating businessman the magazines portray. Life is full of surprises, isn't it?" The evening passed in a blur. When Eliana mentioned she was leaving the next day, Alexander felt an unfamiliar pang of disappointment. "Perhaps you could visit Nordhaven sometime," she suggested. "We have excellent skiing, if you enjoy winter sports." "I'd like that," he said, meaning it. 2 weeks later, Alexander's private jet landed in Nordhaven's picturesque capital. He told himself it was just a short vacation, perhaps with some potential business opportunities. The small country was becoming a tech hub, after all. He hadn't told Eliana he was coming. That would suggest this trip was about her, which it absolutely wasn't, he insisted to himself. The Grand Nordhaven Hotel offered stunning views of snow-capped mountains and the medieval castle that served as both tourist attraction and working royal residence. Alexander spent his first day exploring the charming city center, surprised by how many locals recognized him and thanked him for his company's educational software donations. On his second day, while hiking a mountain trail recommended by the concierge, he rounded a bend and stopped short. There, sitting on a boulder overlooking the valley, was Princess Eliana. She wore hiking boots, jeans, and a warm jacket, a far cry from the elegant woman at the gala, but unmistakably her. She turned at the sound of his footsteps, her surprise evident. "Alexander? What are you doing in Nordhaven?" "I heard the skiing was excellent," he said, feeling suddenly foolish. Her smile was worth the 12-hour flight. "It is. Though I prefer hiking myself." She invited him to join her, and they sat in comfortable silence for a moment, taking in the breathtaking view. "I come here to think," she explained. "To remember what matters." "And what matters to you, Princess?" he asked. "The same things that matter to everyone, I suppose. Connection. Purpose. Making a difference." She turned to face him. "What about you, Alexander? What matters to you?" The question caught him off guard. For years, the answer had been simple: success, growth, beating the competition. But sitting here, those answers felt hollow. "I'm not sure anymore," he admitted. Over the next week, Eliana showed him her country, not the tourist attractions, but the real Nordhaven. They visited a rural school where her literacy foundation had built a library, the children crowding around their princess with obvious adoration. She knew each child by name, asking about their families and favorite books. Alexander watched her interact with her people, from government officials to shopkeepers to the elderly woman who sold flowers in the town square. There was no pretense, no royal distance. She listened to their concerns with genuine interest, remembered details about their lives, touched their hands when they spoke. "You truly care about them," he observed as they walked through a snowy park after visiting a community center. "They're my responsibility," she said simply. "Not just as subjects, but as fellow humans. My title means nothing if I don't use it to improve their lives." Alexander thought about his own employees, thousands of people whose names he didn't know, whose lives were affected by his decisions. When had he stopped seeing them as people and started viewing them as assets? As days turned into weeks, Alexander postponed his return to New York repeatedly. His executive team could handle things, he reasoned. For the first time in years, he wasn't checking his email obsessively or taking calls at all hours. Instead, he was learning to ski with Eliana laughing beside him as he tumbled into snowbanks. He was helping her read to children at the hospital, surprised by how naturally the stories came to him, memories of his mother reading to him surfacing after decades. He was discussing economic development with her advisors, offering insights on how Nordhaven could grow its tech sector while maintaining its cultural heritage. And he was falling in love, slowly, then all at once. The realization hit him one evening as they sat by a fire in a mountain cabin after a day of hiking. Eliana was describing her dreams for expanding her literacy program to neighboring countries, her face animated in the firelight. "What?" she asked, noticing his intense gaze. "You've changed me," he said quietly. "No," she shook her head. "I've just reminded you of who you already were." When he leaned forward to kiss her, it felt like coming home to a place he'd never been before. Their relationship blossomed in the quiet moments, cooking dinner together in the palace kitchen to the chef's horror, working side by side on proposals for a technology education center, walking through snowy forests discussing everything from philosophy to favorite childhood memories. But reality couldn't be held at bay forever. The press eventually caught wind of their relationship, and suddenly they were front-page news. Tech titan and princess, fairy tale or business merger, screamed the headlines. Alexander's board of directors expressed concerns about his extended absence. Eliana faced questions from her council about her relationship with a foreigner, particularly one with such significant financial interests. "They think I'm after your money," she said one night, showing him a particularly vicious tabloid article. Alexander laughed bitterly. "And mine think you're a distraction from the business." The pressure mounted. Alexander needed to return to New York for an important shareholders' meeting. Eliana had diplomatic obligations in neighboring countries. "Come with me," he suggested. "You could visit after your diplomatic tour." She hesitated. "I have responsibilities here, Alexander. My people." "Your people would survive without you for a few weeks," he interrupted, frustration edging his voice. "That's not how I see my role," she replied quietly. "I made a commitment to them." "And what about a commitment to us?" he demanded. The argument escalated, old patterns reasserting themselves. Alexander retreated into cold logic, Eliana into royal dignity. They parted with formal words that masked the pain beneath. Back in New York, Alexander threw himself into work with renewed intensity. If his executives noticed a new harshness in his demeanor, they were too wise to mention it. He pushed through acquisitions, launched new products, expanded into new markets, all with mechanical efficiency. But at night, alone in his penthouse overlooking the city, he found himself looking at pictures of Nordhaven on his tablet. The mountains. The castle. The princess who had shown him a different way to live. 3 months passed. Spring came to New York, but Alexander barely noticed the changing seasons. During a particularly contentious board meeting, his chief financial officer presented projections for a potential acquisition. "The numbers look good," the CFO concluded, "but there are concerns about their corporate culture. They prioritize employee well-being over maximum profit margins." "And that's a problem?" Alexander asked, surprising everyone, including himself. "Well, yes," the CFO stammered. "Their profit per employee ratio is 22% below industry standard because of their family leave policies and educational benefits." Alexander stared at the spreadsheet, seeing numbers but thinking of people. Of Eliana asking a shopkeeper about his daughter's university studies. Of children's faces lighting up when given their first books. "What if we're measuring the wrong things?" he said slowly. The room fell silent. "Sir?" the CFO finally asked. Alexander stood, a decision crystallizing. Meeting adjourned. "I'll be out of the country for a while. Janet will serve as interim CEO." His executive assistant's jaw dropped. "But sir, the Jensen merger." "Can wait," he finished. "Some things are more important." 24 hours later, his jet landed in Nordhaven. The spring thaw had transformed the landscape, mountain wildflowers replacing snow, the air fresh with possibility. He didn't call ahead. Instead, he went directly to the mountain trail where they'd met months before. It was a long shot, but something told him she might be there. The hike was steeper than he remembered, or perhaps he was simply out of practice after months behind a desk. When he reached the outlook, his heart sank. The boulder was empty, the valley spread out below in solitary beauty. Alexander sat down, catching his breath and gathering his thoughts. What now? Storm the castle? He smiled at the absurdity. I thought I might find you here eventually. He turned so quickly he nearly lost his balance. Eliana stood on the path, dressed in hiking gear, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked tired, with faint shadows under her eyes, but to Alexander, she had never been more beautiful. I've been coming here every few days, she admitted. Hoping. He stood, closing the distance between them in 3 strides. I've been a fool. We both have, she said. I was afraid of changing my life, of disappointing my people. And I was afraid of becoming someone new, he confessed. But I already have changed, Eliana. You showed me what matters. She reached for his hand. I missed you. I missed you too. More than I thought possible. He took a deep breath. I don't have it all figured out. My life is in New York, yours is here. But I know we can find a way if we try. What are you proposing, exactly, she asked, a hint of her smile returning. Alexander dropped to one knee, taking her completely by surprise. From his pocket, he pulled not a diamond ring, but a simple band of local Nordhaven silver, purchased from the old craftsman in the town square who had told him stories of the princess visiting his shop as a child. I'm proposing that we build something together, something that honors both our worlds and creates something new. I'm proposing that we stop letting fear make our decisions. His voice grew softer. I'm proposing that you marry me, not because you're a princess or because I'm a billionaire, but because when I'm with you, I'm the man I always wanted to be. Tears filled her eyes. Alexander. Is that a yes? He asked, suddenly uncertain. Instead of answering, she knelt beside him on the mountain path, taking his face in her hands. Embrace me, she whispered, her voice carrying all the loneliness of her royal life, all the hope of their shared future. And he did, pulling her close as the mountain wind swirled around them, carrying the scent of wildflowers and possibility. Their journey wasn't easy. They faced scrutiny from the press, concerns from her council, skepticism from his board. But together they created a life that bridged their worlds, splitting time between Nordhaven and New York, using their combined resources and influence to expand her literacy foundation globally while transforming his company's approach to corporate responsibility. Years later, when asked about the secret to their unlikely partnership, Princess Eliana would smile that same genuine smile that had first captivated him. We remembered what truly matters, she would say, her hand finding his. Not titles or wealth, but how we touch the lives around us. In the end, that's the only legacy worth building. And Alexander, the billionaire who had once measured success in market share and profit margins, would nod in agreement, knowing he had found something far more valuable than all his billions could ever buy, a love that challenged him to be better, and the wisdom to embrace it.